All right. Okay, here we go.
I'm honored to be able to speak with you about this very important question.
Can you see and hear it?
No, so I need you to share your screen again. Actually, what I might do is just take control of your computer.
How's that?
That's good.
Of what is being planned for
Can you see and hear?
Yes.
Perfect.
your wonderful island and for the planet at this time. I've had a long career in public health and environmental policy, and for many years worked in the government. I was approved by the US Senate for a presidential appointment under President Clinton, and I was a member of the team awarded the Nobel Peace Prize with Al Gore in 2007 for my work as a lead author on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So it's a real pleasure to be able to talk with you today about this issue of 5G and what's happening in the world, because it actually has profound implications for climate change that have not generally been recognized. And I think that you are in a unique position to pay attention to that set of problems. If we look at what we know about 5G and about non-ionizing radiation, as you will have heard from Mr. Clegg and others, we know that cancer is just one of the issues that has been identified with non-ionizing radiation. Now, you'll hear people say that non-ionizing radiation is weak. And you know what? They're right. It is weak. But its biological impact has nothing to do with its power, but with its frequency and with the pulsed nature of the signal, so that it's very erratic. And the erratic signal over millions of times of exposure throughout the lifetime of our children is why we are very concerned about its capacity to damage DNA, to impair memory, to in fact reduce sperm count in men who carry phones in their pockets. And all of that information can be found in my TEDx talk for those of you who are interested to know more about it. One of the things that has been established through 9 years of field study of trees in Germany is that radiofrequency radiation damages trees. And if you look carefully at the image before you, you'll see that on the healthy side of the tree, the exposures are almost 10 times less than on the unhealthy side of the tree. And it's almost as though the tree is trying to move away from the antenna located right in the far left side of the image before you. And this peer-reviewed publication made clear those that were nearest to the mobile phone base stations showed the most damage, the closer the tree was. 5G is an energy hog. The reason 5G is an energy hog is because although it may increase efficiency, it depends entirely on the world purchasing billions of more new devices, many of which are questionable use. I mean, do you really need your washing machine to be able to talk to your refrigerator, or your refrigerator to decide when to order food for you? There's a lot of questions that are being raised by energy economists, and as you see in this graph here, that the evolution of global energy consumption for digital devices is exponentially going to increase. And if you look carefully at these lines, you will see the worst case scenario has more than a doubling of energy consumption from this sector of digital devices by 2025 compared to 2010. Now that's a huge increase, and it's what's called the rebound effect. The increase in demand will swamp any improvement in efficiency. In addition, you have a massive environmental footprint because you'll need millions of new antennas, which require sometimes precious metals to be put in them, and billions of new wireless devices, which will create tremendous amounts of electronic waste. Electronic waste is a huge problem. Shipping it off your island is one approach to it, but we simply are not able to keep up with the demand. Now, there are studies on insects, and this has been done by a group of very talented engineers in Switzerland, where they've taken and made a model, three-dimensional model of a honeybee. And they've shown that just a 10% change in power density in the frequencies that will be used in 5G could lead to an increase of absorbed power of up to 3-fold. And this in turn could lead to changes in insect behavior. And I should add, you'll see here on this image that 5G is what 24 gigahertz will entail. And contrary to the idea that this is nothing other than an airport scanner, let me tell you, you do not want to be in an airport scanner for 24 hours a day. And if we have 5G, it will be everywhere.
Hi, has that stopped for everybody or just me?
No, it stopped for me as well.
Okay.
Kemi, has it stopped for you? No, Kemi's frozen.
Yeah, it stopped for me too.
Stop for me too.
Yes, me as well.
So I think it's Kemi's system that's not working correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like Camilla is also frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Mm.
Okay, let's see.
Camilla might have to hang up and call back in. Just briefly, what Dr. Davis was about to say was that we don't want to be in an airport scanner 24 hours a day. And that's what it would be like with 5G, because we would have these small cells pervading our neighborhoods and our workplaces, and they would be emitting this microwave radiation constantly at us without ceasing. We wouldn't be able to turn it off like we can with our Wi-Fi routers. And that's one of the greatest concerns, is that it's not something that we'll have any control over, and it will be pervasive throughout the island.
Right, Christine, I have a quick question for you, because right now our cell towers are, I think we've got them, our cell towers at 4G right now, is that right?
Yeah, we have something called 4G and LTE.
Okay, so how is that, because I'm trying to understand, just with the upgrade to 5G, how is that different than what we're being exposed to now?
And that's such a fantastic and important question, because most of us, including myself for a while, would just think, oh, 5G is just the next generation, which is more, better, faster, better service, which equals great. What it actually entails is using a different waveform. It's a shorter waveform. So they would have to erect many more mast poles to put what are called small cells attached on them, because they have to be in close proximity to each other in order to work. A huge, massive cutting down of trees and greenery would have to happen, because these waves can't work with any obstructions. And they would have to be put close to our homes if they were expecting that we were going to be using 5G in our homes, as well as around our workplaces and our children's schools and hospitals and elderly homes.
Right.
Yeah.
So these towers would be just as huge, if not bigger, than what we have right now?
We might not necessarily have big towers like we have now, but they will be able to attach these, what they're calling small cells, and they're not in fact very small, but they're small compared to these huge structures. But they'll be able to attach them to every light pole, every existing structure. And I'm not even sure what the regulations are about attaching them to people's homes. As a matter of fact, what we've learned is that there are so few regulations in regards to these technologies that it's very alarming. Like, we don't even have a registry of the antennas that we already have on the island. And I don't believe there is any regulation in terms of how far these things are from our homes. And newer studies have just proven that living close to these towers brings an increase in brain tumors and kinds of cancers. And oh, Camilla's just rejoined us.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on.
Mute.
Unmute yourself, Camilla.
Camilla, you're on mute. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I really have to apologize. I use video conferencing for work every day. For some reason, my computer, the audio wasn't coming through for Carmen, so I had to switch to my son's computer at the last minute. The
It's
video
okay.
played, but I didn't realize it wasn't charged. So I had to run up and get the charger. So I'm
But
so
Camilla, you know, I think what would be helpful, Camilla, is if we could show everyone that first video, because it's really impossible to get visually what 5G is without something like that. I'm a very visual person, and just hearing the talking, it's like, what? So if we could see that little video again, would that be possible?
Yes, if people have time, but
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I'll finish Dr. Davis's video. And then if they have time, because I'm conscious it's a school night and people have things to do. So
Yeah.
Now, Camilla, let me just say, this is normally like our Bible study hour, and we usually go to about 9 o'clock. So
Oh,
we have a bit of
great.
time that we can
Oh, thank you.
work with. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank you
generous.
so much. Okay. So.
The researcher, Norman.
Can you see and hear?
Yes.
Yes, we're good.
Okay. So we were on the bees. We had done the bees and
Right there. Yeah.
we finished off.
In
Okay.
insect behavior.
After the bees.
And I should add, you'll see here on this image that 5G is what 24 gigahertz will entail. And contrary to the idea that this is nothing other than an airport scanner, let me tell you, you do not want to be in an airport scanner for 24 hours a day. And if we have 5G, it will be everywhere all the time, and the demand will only grow. Birds and wildlife also are showing effects of this non-ionizing radiation. And many studies have been published, some by Albert Manville, who was formerly the chief of the US Fish and Wildlife Service for this topic of birds and wildlife impacts. And he has documented effects on breeding, nesting and survival, and the ability of birds to navigate. There's something called the magnetoreceptor, a protein behind the eye of all navigating animals that have been studied so far. And this is interfered with by the increase in non-ionizing radiation. So bird health is affected as well. Finally, we have to ask ourselves, well, if there's all these problems, how come the United States isn't doing more? And unfortunately, as was documented 5 years ago by a Harvard University researcher, Norman Alster, at the time, the FCC remains a captured agency. The current and past heads of the FCC come from and will probably go back to the telecommunications industry. And while it's important to have knowledgeable people who are FCC commissioners, there are none of them right now, not one, that is truly independent of this industry. And as Alster said, this industry looks like tobacco today in their tactics that they have been employing to get information to people. What you see before you now is a screenshot from a recent French documentary on public television there called 5G, The Wave of Doubt. And translations are going to be made available soon. It's currently available in French. And it's important to understand that the ICNIRP standard is actually not followed by half of the world today. They have more stringent standards, as you will see shortly, than what ICNIRP has recommended. The International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection is a small club of self-appointed and self-monitored experts by invitation only. Many of them have close industry ties. Several of them are sponsored directly by industry funding for their research, as you saw in the short documentary from Investigate Europe. So what I'd like to say in conclusion is that I worked at the National Academy of Sciences for 10 years. And I worked on the problem of passive tobacco at a time when people were smoking on airplanes. Some of you, like me, may be old enough to remember that. And at that time, we worked hard to look at the independent data on tobacco smoke, and it took many years before we were able to publish our results, not because the science was uncertain, but because the pressure from the tobacco industry was so great at that time that we were unable to get good work out in a timely way. And as you may recall, the effort to reduce tobacco in public spaces didn't really go globally until the 1990s. And that really is a tragedy for public health, because there are millions of avoidable deaths that have occurred because smoking was encouraged for so long. And climate is another issue of that sort as well, where the climate deniers are very well organized. And they would have you think that we don't know enough to do anything now, when in fact, the no regrets policy, precautions can be taken, as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has said. But let's ask the question, if the climate is so important for us all, what are we doing with 5G? And the biggest improvement that you can make for your island is to go with fiber optic cable. This will be safer, it will prevent cybersecurity threats, and it will reduce exposure to non-ionizing radio frequency radiation, which is a human carcinogen that can damage DNA and damage sperm. And I turn you over now to my colleague, Theodora Scarrato, who is Executive Director of Environmental Health Trust, where I am the president. Thank you.
So at Environmental Health Trust, I work on maintaining a database of policy moving forward on wireless and electromagnetic radiation. Just recently, the New York State Commission on Health and Environmental Effects of 5G released 15 recommendations to the governor of New Hampshire after a year-long intensive investigation where they interviewed numerous experts, including scientists of the National Toxicology Program, to consider the health impacts that are posed by 5G. The recommendations that they made include a resolution to U.S. Congress to require that the FCC commission an independent health study and a review of the safety limits, to engage agencies to develop radio frequency safety limits that protect trees, plants, birds, insects, and pollinators, because the current FCC limits, and in fact, any limits that have been set by governments, none of them were set or designed to protect our natural environment or wildlife. Engage the FCC to do an environmental impact statement. Require 5G structures be labeled and radio frequency radiation measured. Establish radio frequency radiation free zones in commercial and public buildings. Use wired connections, not Wi-Fi, in libraries and schools. And that the health agency should educate on how to minimize radio frequency exposure with multimedia public education efforts, especially for pregnant women and babies. Oregon State passed a bill investigating the impacts of wireless, especially to children. Resolutions have been passed in Hawaii County, Farragut, Tennessee, Easton, Connecticut, calling to halt 5G. There are several city ordinances restricting the deployment of 5G in small cells. So, for example, in Los Altos, California, the installation of small cell towers on public utility easement in residential neighborhoods is prohibited, and there are 500-foot setbacks for schools, and we have links to all of those city ordinances on our website. Now, over 20 countries recommend people, especially children, reduce exposure to cellular radiation, especially to their brain. And what you're seeing here is the back of a bus in Cyprus, where they have an educational campaign for parents to protect their children. And the translation of this poster is, "Don't irradiate me, learn how to protect me." Wireless has actually been removed from the neonatal units of Archbishop Macarius Hospital, and the country has a large-scale multimedia public education program running in the country. Now, many countries have limits for cell tower exposures, which are far lower than FCC or ICNIRP limits. And here are some examples of countries which have more stringent limits in regards to the 900 megahertz electric field. However, the wireless industry is stating that in order to deploy 5G, those countries with strict limits need to weaken their limits in order to fully deploy 4G and 5G in the country. Industry has been working hard to have countries actually change their limits, and they've been successful in Poland and Lithuania, who now change their limits to allow more radiation to accommodate 5G. There is now a campaign by industry to get Russia to change their more stringent limits as well. In Italy, over 600 municipalities have passed resolutions to halt 5G until scientific research demonstrates safety, especially for long-term exposures. We have a page at ehtrust.org with international policy to halt 5G across the world, and these are just a few examples. In addition to the 600 cities in Italy, there's a growing list of municipalities from the United Kingdom to Croatia, Ireland, France, Bulgaria, Germany, Cyprus, Bulgaria, Australia, where they have resolutions to halt 5G. Kalamata, Greece, was a test city for 5G, but once the people understood the health and environmental impacts posed by 5G and small cell densification, they reversed course and decided not to continue with the company. Several countries have launched safety reviews. However, the outcome has been the echoing of industry, in fact, because the panels were industry tied. They concluded that non-ionizing radiation has not been proven to be harmful. However, the Switzerland Parliament, after their review, refused to weaken their stringent radiofrequency radiation limits. And in France, the health authority has a comprehensive research investigation that's been going on for months, and that's going to be coming out next year. We also document on our website the hundreds of scientists and doctors around the world issuing resolutions to halt 5G and protect the public and the environment. We have documentation on the environmental organizations that have issued reports, such as one of the largest nature conservation associations in Germany, which found the majority of peer-reviewed studies found effects to insects in a recent study that just came out in September. Wireless companies warn their shareholders of risk, but not their customers nor residents. Crown Castle's annual report states, if radio frequency emissions from wireless handsets or equipment on our communications infrastructure are demonstrated to cause negative health effects, potential future claims could adversely affect our operations, costs, or revenues. We currently do not maintain any significant insurance with respect to these matters. In fact, most wireless companies have similar statements on their annual reports as well. And they don't have insurance because insurance authorities rank non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation and 5G as high risk. And insurance companies generally have an exclusion as they don't cover damages related to non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation. 5G and the Internet of Things is not a sustainable technology. Pollution, human rights abuses, and environmental destruction have been documented at every stage of the life cycle of a device, from the conflict minerals to the inhumane worker conditions and toxins in manufacturing harming workers, to the radiation exposure to children, the public, trees, birds, and bees, to the electronic e-waste. We need to use technology responsibly instead of rushing into something that hundreds of scientists are warning us about.
You may have heard that because 5G only gets 1/64 inch or a few millimeters into the skin, it can have no biological effect. Well, whoever has told you that doesn't understand basic biology. It is now understood by this image taken from a 2019 peer-reviewed article in a clinical microbiology review that the skin-associated lymphoid tissue is critically important to the immune system, and that things that affect the skin affect the entire body. Think of how well you feel when after the rain you go outside and have a little sunlight on your faces. It affects your whole body. The same thing is true. The skin exposure can affect keratinocytes and the epidermis, which is the surface of the skin, which then infect the Langerhans cells that can in turn affect major histocompatibility complex, interleukins, tumor necrosis factor, and other things that affect how well your immune system functions. As an example of the ability of the skin to resonate with 5G, this is work done by Dr. Benny Shai in his laboratory at Hebrew University with optical coherence tomography, where you see within, from the epidermis, the skin duct, the sweat ducts go down into the skin where they have an effect throughout the body. The sweat ducts resonate like small helical antennas to absorb and reflect that radiation. Thinner skin will absorb more, thicker skin will absorb less. And this work has been published in peer-reviewed journals showing that the skin does have a biological response to millimeter wave technology. Millimeter waves are intensely absorbed into the skin, as you can see from these illustrations from the work of Professor Paul Benny-Shai, reproduced here. More information can be found on our website about this. Now, I want to turn next to some modeling work that has been done based on open source information that can be accessed around the world of existing networks in Austin, Texas. And what you see on the left in the red circles is the existing coverage of the LTE. And what you see on the right is the proposed deployed 5G network. And the bottom line is to show you that there will be much more dense exposure to radiation throughout the system. You can turn off your phone, but you can't turn off the network. This is what it looks like in another density map made by these researchers published in the IEEE World Forum on 5G. What they have shown is that 5G infrastructure, when combined with existing infrastructure, will create levels of radiation that cannot yet be classified as safe for the public. And they urge a rethinking of exposure in 5G networks, with which we completely and heartily agree. Just to be clear, when 5G is implemented, outdoor exposures will increase exponentially, as indicated here in this mapping of the power density that will take place with a fully deployed 5G network for the town of Austin, Texas. This is why, once fully employed, there will be no way to escape exposure to the 24/7 operations of the 5G system that will be required. If you'd like more information, please go to our website at ehtrust.org, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So maybe we could open it up for any general discussion. My colleagues, well, they could introduce themselves, and we could see if you have any questions so far, because that was quite a long video.
Well, I would like to see that first video.
Okay. Okay. All right. And we have a copy of this presentation we can email out.
Oh, okay.
If anybody wants, it has all the information and the videos on there. We made it especially for your group.
Okay.
So we could send it to you, Carmen, and you could maybe share it. All right.
Oh, you know what, Camilla, I think you already have it open in one of your other tabs up there.
Number 4.
At the top to the right, yeah.
Yes, 5G mass experiment. There we go. What is this?
Now you need to go back page.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a revolution
Can you see in here?
Yep.
Perfect.
on the way. It's the 5G revolution. Although some say this will be more like an experiment that will affect billions of people. 5G stands for 5th generation mobile services. The internet will be faster than ever. Downloading a high-definition movie will take mere seconds. By 2025, the European Commission is planning for all urban areas across the continent to have seamless 5G coverage. This will enable a new age in the Internet of Things. Smart driverless cars and smart hospitals, smart fridges, coffee makers, and even baby diapers. But what citizens are not told is that for this to happen, countless new antennas will be added in our neighborhoods, our workplaces, even in our homes. Are mobile communications dangerous? The scientific community is divided. Some experts maintain they are safe, others have serious concerns. In 2011, the WHO classified electromagnetic fields associated with cell phones as possibly carcinogenic to humans. And studies published in 2018 showed that when rats were exposed to such fields, it increased their risk of certain types of cancer. Even among those who believe the technology is safe, many admit that more studies are needed. And for 5G, there are almost no studies. Telecom companies themselves have noted that electromagnetic signals may pose health risks. So why are the EU Commission and our governments turning a blind eye? They cite guidelines established by transnational scientific bodies. But Investigate Europe has found that these bodies are closed clubs. People with dissenting opinions are not invited in, and a significant number of the scientists involved have received funding from companies with vested interests in the 5G rollout. There is no risk-free society. Other things we consume are also bad for our health, from alcohol to junk food. But if you don't want a hamburger, you can simply avoid hamburgers. With 5G, there is no opt-out.
Okay. So who do you have any questions for any of us? Anthony, are you on, or Eugene?
Hi, I'm on. How are you?
Hi,
Good night,
Anthony.
everyone. So I'm a school teacher, and I'm deeply concerned about the fact that the rollout of 5G is going to affect, it's going to have to come by schools, and these school children will be affected. And so it's very concerning that this is, part of, not factored in with this rollout. So I'm concerned, and I would hope that other educators as well as the general public should be concerned about this 5G. I don't think they have 5G. It's dollars, it's profit over people. And this is the scenario that we have been we're part of. Where companies are not concerned about the effects of the population. They just want us to continue to consume and consume. And that's the unfortunate part of the milieu that we are in today. So that's, basically my spiel. But any questions?
If I can ask, now that we've gotten all this information, what can we do to ensure that it doesn't come here? As an average layperson, what can we do?
Well, there's three really important, helpful things you can do. Currently, the Regulatory Authority is having a consultation. It's very unfortunate timing because it's been a very short consultation, and a lot of people obviously are concerned now with their health and all of that comes with COVID. And now we're coming up to Christmas. So the consultation actually ends next week, December 7th. But you can go to the RA website. So it's www.ra.bm. And you can click on the submit feedback. And you can put your feedback that you don't want 5G, or you want the consultation extended to give more time to consider it. We have a form letter that if you email us, and I've included it in this presentation, you can actually use it if you're not sure where to begin. It's a form letter objection. And then you could sign the petition as well that we have going around. There's almost 4,000 signatures. That's also included in this presentation. And you can talk to your family and your friends and your ministers, your representatives, and just share with them the concern for the health, of our children and ourselves and our environment, and, the concerns.
I do have a copy of that form letter that Therese sent me today. So I can blast it out to the Bethel membership, and anyone else who is on the meeting tonight that is not part of Bethel, that if you email us at bethelbdachurch@gmail and just having the subject line 5G form letter, and I would reply with the letter attached. And if you can do that tomorrow, we can get that out as quickly as possible. So there's bethelbdachurch@gmail.com, 5G form letter, and we would just reply with the attached form letter.
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, G.
Okay. You was in the video, it was saying about the impact of wireless in pregnant women. Do the doctors warn the pregnant women not to have the cell phones so close to them or anything like that? Do you know?
Well, we do have a wonderful pediatrician here, Dr. Pete Talbot. She was actually my pediatrician when my son was young. And well, he's still quite young. She is fantastic, and she is knowledgeable and does educate her patients and her, but she actually presented in the 5G forum that we had a couple of weeks ago. She gave an excellent presentation, and that's on our website. She quotes some of the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations. So if you go to www.bast.em, you can review that. And there's a project out of Yale. It's called the Baby Safe Project. And that's a really, it has a great little guidebook that can be given out to new parents. But the truth in Bermuda is there really isn't a lot of education at all. We've been advocating for 1.5 years, or 2 years to the RA, just to create an education policy around wireless use.
Mm-hmm.
Because technology is part of our life and it's going to continue to grow. We're not anti-technology at all. Despite my performance tonight, my laptop is plugged in with an Ethernet cable now, and it's a great secure connection. My son uses the laptop for school and it's plugged in with an Ethernet connection. So it's perfectly safe. So there's simple things you can do to reduce exposure. You can download movies for Kids First, and you can get an adapter for their iPad so that they're not exposed to wireless radiation that can be plugged into an Ethernet cable. So we would love to see more education around it in Bermuda.
And may I add to that just for a moment? Hello, good evening, everyone. It's so lovely to be with you. I just wanted to say that we're so grateful to be with you. Just to say that our primary desire in connecting with you and with everyone in the community who's willing to connect with us is to foster a sense and a feeling of connectivity and care for one another. Especially people who are grounded in faith, like that's our purpose, is our service towards God and towards humanity and keeping the world beautiful, making it better, protecting our children, protecting each other, and just fostering goodness. And one of the things that we're feeling in this whole process is that it just feels a bit cold and a bit like the community is being a bit brushed aside, and I'm not saying that there's intention to do that, but that's how it's coming off, because we have this very short window within which to understand what 5G is, which is confusing when you're just coming at it for the first time, and then to form an opinion around it, and then to make a submission to our regulatory authority with proof to back up our concerns, which is like, here, have a crash course in, EMFs and science and be cohesive and make sense. And it's just daunting for people. People get overwhelmed and they just feel like, oh, this is not going to work anyway. They're not going to listen to us. Just never mind. I don't know what to write. And so we feel defeated before we're even embraced and encouraged to take heart and remember that every voice in the community matters. So we're hoping to foster and nurture just that remembrance that it's the people that matter, you know, it's the hearts and the souls that matter. It's not the stuff and it's not the money. And we can really lose sight of that. And there really is a way to manifest a kind of technology that also protects the community that it's serving. So if you're listening to all of this, and even that long video we just showed, I was getting kind of overwhelmed. And I've been dealing with this stuff for you know, a couple of years now. And I'm like, oh my God, my head was spinning. But the reason why I'm sharing that is because I have doctor friends in Bermuda who are like excellent doctors who do not know most of this stuff. They are watching these videos and hearing these talks and getting this information for the first time and saying, oh my gosh, we need to slow this process down. We really need to understand this. So if they're saying that, imagine how we are feeling, just the lay people who are just living our lives and totally addicted to our cell phones because we love to be connected to each other all the time. I'm right there with you. So this, we're hoping this can be like a little mini crash course to crack the door open to help people understand at least enough of it to kind of sound an inner alarm bell to say, wait a minute, this can't be rushed through. Each of us in the community really does need to get to have a say. And so the more people and the more groups that kind of embody that spirit and say, hey, hello, the people matter. Don't brush your community aside. The better, the more, the better. Otherwise, it's like 10 of us running around going, you know, help, help, listen to me, listen to me. And people are like, well, who are they? And what is this stuff? Is this a conspiracy? There's so much flying around. We need time. So we're asking the RA to slow it down. We need to reach out to each other and help accompany each other in education to understand both children and adults, mostly adults right now. And then we need to not give up and feel like our one voice doesn't matter, because our one voices will add up to a community of caring, concerned people. And that's what we're hoping will happen. We pray God, that's what will happen.
Okay, I have another question. In respect, you said that the RA is going to close on December the 7th.
Yes.
That's going to close on December the 7th.
That's the last date that you can make a submission to them through their site saying whether you want it or not. Yeah.
And so they will make a decision after that. That's what they're planning on doing?
Yes, they're planning on putting out their preliminary report on December 21st. And I'm not sure if many public for comment. I'm not sure how many people will even be noticing that around that time.
Yeah, because I'm wondering now if we should ask for another. I think they extended this to December 7th, right?
Yeah, they gave 2 weeks for the public. They didn't give 2 weeks for the presenters because we presented and Green Rock presented to the panel, but they did extend the public for 2 weeks.
Okay, because you know, it's kind of hard, even like how my pastor was saying that like a form. Okay, we get a form, but a lot of people are not tech savvy. So can we send it another way or something like that? You know, like going into their website is a little cumbersome, you know. And I'm wondering now if somehow or the other, if we should ask for another extension, maybe into the new year, you know, to get away from the Christmas or something like that.
Yes.
And then
wonderful.
Yeah. And then one other question, I'm not too sure. What's the difference between 5G and then you see how they have 5 GB? So like on your phone, they like the they've upgraded you to what, 6 GB now. Is that a difference? Is that something?
Yes, that's 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So the 5G there stands for gigahertz Wi-Fi, and the 5G that we're talking about stands for generation, 5th generation technology. Okay. So the 5G Wi-Fi is nothing to do with 5G. Okay. That's just a higher frequency of Wi-Fi. You know, we always recommend you don't have Wi-Fi in the bedroom and anyway, regardless, and you use hard wired connections where possible. because in your home, you can easily do that because you're not moving all around. But the 5th generation we're talking about is it's nothing like 4G either.
Right.
It's a complete departure from what we've had before. It involves much, much higher frequencies called millimeter waves that have not been tested on humans before. And a type of technology that previously wasn't used for telecommunication systems, it was used for military systems. So it's because the frequencies are much higher, it requires a lot more little cell towers. So instead of the big cell tower that you see up on the hill right now, this would be small masts that are at much lower heights. Some of them are just like big boxes put onto poles and things, but they're not little in their output. They may look smaller, but they're giving out, in many cases, like Dr. Davis was saying, even more radiation. And there has to be a lot more of them, so they're a lot closer to your home and your school. And that's the real concern with it. It also uses a technique called beam forming, which 4G never used. So it's a concentrated beam of radiation as opposed to like a gentle cone spread.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of concerns with it. And it's well recognized because even the European Parliament recognized that this is very different from previous technologies. And there is very little safety testing. So
actually, on that note, Camilla, I don't know if you noticed in the videos, Dr. Davis said this cannot be regarded as safe yet. And what we're seeing in the conversation in Bermuda, if you can even call it a conversation, it's more like we offer a concern and we kind of get bullied from the industry side. And there's a reason for that. Just to finish that first thought, it can't be deemed safe. And their argument is it hasn't been proven dangerous. We would come back saying, well, it has been proven dangerous by virtue of all the other technologies being proven dangerous. And it has been tested on animals, and we are obviously spiritual beings, but we also have an animal body, so we will obviously be affected as well. What happens is that the industry people, for the most part, are not paying attention to the health science. So we will say there is science proving its lack of safety, and the industry people are saying, oh, well, that's not science, which is, of course, not true. So the science coming in from this perspective that's much newer than the science they're going off of to be on the table and to be looked at and taken seriously.
Okay.
And sorry, and people also dismiss this because it's like an advertising ploy that some people say, I have 5G already. You know, what are people concerned about? I mean, people come to me and they're like, you know, what are you talking about? Because it's a lack of education, lack of awareness. And so that's really at the heart of it, you know. So we need to stop. We need to stop this.
You're right.
In the long run, we would love to see some minimum setbacks like they have in other countries, some other countries, so that, because, you know, they've done studies where people that live within, there's many studies like this. There's one on the American Academy of Pediatrics site, where people that live within very close proximity to cell towers tend to have higher rates of disease. So we would love to see before they, you know, we don't even think 5G should be considered at this time because there's really no protective policy at all. And, you know, your neighbor can rent out his yard and put a cell tower up. He gets the money, you don't get any money, but now you have a cell tower, you know, radiating you and your family. And we would like to see minimum setbacks. So we obviously need cell towers. We all have phones, we need them, but there should be some minimum setbacks, some heights and some distances from people's homes and schools so that we all feel safe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
As well. And you mentioned, so the 5G phones and the things that are already in the market refer to the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi and not the new 5G technology. And then I think that it mentioned in the video that the option is fiber optic, that, you know, 5G the benefits of 5G can be achieved in other ways. Is that right?
Right. A lot of the scientists that are concerned about 5G are advocating for fiber optic connections to the home. So instead of, right now, a lot of us have the old copper Cablevision cable, which obviously it's not as fast. If you invested in everybody getting fiber optics to home, that gives you the speeds. You can download movies. It's way faster than 5G. 5G is really for, and then you just save the capacity for wireless when you're on the go, when you need your cell phone and things like that. But there's a big picture in the world, because the move to 5G, I really consider it like, it is to me like a moral and spiritual dilemma, because the move to 5G is really about the Internet of Things. So like the video was talking about at the beginning, it's about your baby's diaper having a wireless antenna on it. So now instead of, your phone will go for the beep, or the baby wet the diaper. So now you're sort of losing that connectivity that you have, just sitting waiting for your phone to tell you the baby's diaper's wet. Meanwhile, the baby's getting irradiated. Mm-hmm. And, there's some scientists that are even talking about turning people into part of the Internet of Things with tracking chips and things like that. And I mean, to us, it's a real spiritual, moral thing of how much connectivity do we need? Do we need everything wireless? Do we need everything, like Dr. Davis was saying? Do you need your coffee maker to talk to your washing machine and so forth? We don't need wireless sensors in everything. We just need wireless for when we're on the move. And if we invested in fiber optics, obviously Bermuda, the business cases, you can download a movie faster, but is downloading a movie faster? You can do it safely with fiber optics. And even if you couldn't, which you could, is downloading a movie faster worth exposing all of us to potential cancer increases and disease,
That's the real question, is all this wirelessness worth the health traumas? And when you think about people who are struggling to pay for their livelihood, their home, their food, just trying to get by in Bermuda, which is incredibly expensive, can you imagine piling health issues on top of that? It's just, to me, it seems criminal. I've just been made aware that Eugene Dean just came onto the call. Did you want to say hello, Eugene? Or did anybody want to ask you something?
Yeah, I just want, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't want to get into, we have some nice questions coming through. So if anybody has any more questions, then feel free to ask.
Yeah, I just want to.
Question, sorry. Yeah. Was this on your platform when you ran in the election, Eugene?
Well, to be honest with you, I've become a lot more educated on knowledge of 5G technology and the potential impact on human health and the environment since connecting with Bermuda Advocates for Safe Technology. So I have to thank them for the awareness that I now possess. And so no, I didn't possess this awareness. I was wary. A good friend of mine, Dr. David Chapman, who was in our live broadcast, he had spoken to me about his personal experiences with it. So he's in the UK, and his youngest son was having nosebleeds at night, and they were trying to figure out like what was causing the nosebleeds. And then they realized that about 20 feet away from his bedroom window, there was a 5G antenna that had been installed on the street. And so they ended up having to change his bedroom to stop the nosebleeds. So I was concerned about it. Obviously, Camilla was just speaking about the connectivity, the bigger picture with 5G and this whole great reset that is being talked about around the world, and now this whole Internet of Things, where, it looks like the idea is to make, whole communities into these large mesh networks where you just remain connected all the time. And so I agree with what Camilla was just sharing, is that, you know, we have a natural connectivity. You know, there are energetic realms that we're not even conscious of because we're so tapped into technology. So, you know, whilst technology is helping to develop us and helping us to be more productive in some senses, in other senses, you know, the technology is taking us away from, I guess, our true senses, you know, which connect us all naturally, you know what I mean? And so, so we just have to be careful. The thing that's impressed me most with BAST is that at the foundation of it, they're really just looking to educate people and just make people more aware about, you know, how to utilize technology in safer ways, and making people more aware of, you know, the potential health risks. Because for the most part, as they said, you know, these things get pushed through the industry, and, you know, we just become recipients of this technology, but no one's really like sitting us down and laying it out. I mean, we went through decades and decades of cigarette smoking. I mean, everybody was smoking cigarettes in houses, on airplanes, and restaurants, and all of a sudden it's like you can't come close to somebody with a cigarette, only because we were able to break through the industry wall to get the real information to people, you know, to get the truth out. And so what's interesting is that in Bermuda, it's not even really a push from the established industry here, which is real interesting. I've been having meetings. I had a meeting this morning with one of the top telecommunications companies here, and apparently they all had a meeting recently. There is a new startup company that's pushing for 5G, but outside of that, you know, OneCom, Digicel, Link, what are the other players? None of the major players are pushing for it, because the reality is that Bermuda has a very small market. Okay. And so in order for new technologies to be feasible for them from a business perspective, the business case has to be extremely developed. So we have fiber optics in Bermuda, but we got fiber optics like 5 to 7 years after like the US and major European companies. And the same thing with our 4G LTE network, which we currently use for cell phones. You know, that was deployed in certain areas primarily because of the America's Cup. And then after the America's Cup, it was deployed throughout the island. But by the time we got 4G, it was in America and other places for 5 years. So, you know, it's interesting because, you know, we're still trying to answer this question. It's like, where is this push for 5G coming from? You know, it can't be that like one startup company in Bermuda is enough to justify, you know, deploying this technology all around the island. It's like, no, you know, if the industry on the island is not saying that they're even considering it in the next year or two, you know, I mean, they recognize that at some point the technology that we're using now will become extinct and there will be a need to upgrade to something else, but they're still looking to leverage off of the technology that we already have. Right. So if it's not coming from the industry, if people are not individually asking for 5G, then where is the push for it coming from? You know, and why is all of a sudden this urgency to make a decision on it, you know, when the idea of a public consultation is to get the public to give informed input?
Yes.
You know? So, and how do you give informed input if no one's focusing on education? BAST is the only organization on the island that's been focused on actually raising awareness in the community. No one else is saying anything. So anyway, that it just raises a lot of questions. So from a Green Rock perspective, our communication with the RA and with government is that we're just as concerned about the process as we are about the outcome. Actually, we're more concerned about the process, because we're confident that if the process is fair and just, that as a country, as a community, we have the capacity to make decisions that are in our collective best interest. Mm-hmm. So if we focus on that, we'll get an outcome that's right for Bermuda. Whatever the outcome is, it will be right for Bermuda because we're smart enough to make wise decisions. So that's where we're to. And I mean, this morning I wrote another email. I have to see if I've had a response to the CEO of the RA requesting a meeting. I've previously made requests to their head of communication, encourage them to collaborate with Green Rock, because their response to the education piece is, well, we have all the information on our website, we put ads in the newspaper, and I'm like, well, nobody goes to your website.
Who goes to the RA
Obviously,
website?
nobody's looking at your ads because nobody knows. Every time we talk to people, they're like, wow, we didn't know. So you're not reaching anyone. So why not work with people who are reaching people?
Yes.
And if you're not genuinely going out to bring information to the community, then are you genuinely trying to have a public consultation? Or are you checking the box? So anyway, so that's the position that we have taken. We've been very public about it. If you go on the BAST website, you can find, several interviews. You can find our live broadcast that we hosted, and it's all there. So everyone. What? I'm sorry, Christina.
I apologize for interrupting you. I'm sensitive to time, and there was a gentleman, Kent, who was trying to ask a question, and I just don't want to.
I'll gladly stop, but thank you for the opportunity.
Eugene
I'm glad you guys joined in on the conversation.
You're the best, Eugene. He's like our prince. He builds bridges where other people would like throw down the tools and go home. He's like, nope, let's call that person. That person we're scared of. Yeah, let's go see that person. He's amazing. So
Yes.
do you want to ask something?
Yes. So my understanding is in my mind, to summarize, the 5G technology is not the issue. It's the delivery system, i.e. wired Ethernet versus Wi-Fi, correct? Is that, so it's not the technology, it's the mode of delivery?
You are a little bit right, because if 5G was delivered by fiber optics, we wouldn't have a problem. But that's correct. You are almost actually completely right there.
Right. So wouldn't that be probably the compromise position to probably take for both parties?
No, because the whole point of 5G and everybody who's rolling it out is that it's cheap and dirty. Basically, it's cheap to just put up wireless antennas. And that's what they're going with.
Sure. Okay.
Well, let me say this, Ken. Let me say this, right?
Yeah.
The whole point of mobile or wireless technology is that you have the freedom to move around. You know, so whilst we all had wired phones in our houses, now everyone carries around cell phones, so you can connect to people no matter where they are, whenever. You get the freedom and flexibility. So applications for wireless are such, like one of the selling points for 5G now from an industry perspective is that you have these huge factories. Imagine a production line, and all the components in that production line, all the machines are connected by wires, and then if they make a change in their production line and they have to reorganize the equipment, it's a huge investment of time and money to rewire all that equipment together. One of the selling points for 5G, they're saying, is that now, because the connection speed is so fast, right, that they can actually make that whole operation wireless. You know what I mean? So that you don't have to have this huge investment in wires. So we already have fiber optics in Bermuda. If you have Digicel, you have fiber coming straight to your house. If you have OneCom, you have fiber coming to your neighborhood and coax cable coming to your house.
Right.
It's just that the technology is pushing a wireless agenda. So everything is becoming more wireless. Everything, like even this laptop that I'm using, doesn't have an Ethernet port on it because it's a slim laptop. So it's nice and slim, but now I have to buy an adapter to get a wired connection to it. You know what I mean? Because everything is being pushed wireless. So what BAST is saying and what scientists are saying is that, listen, we have to be mindful of all the wireless radiation associated with all this wireless technology. iPads, these cell phones, these laptops, everything that we're bringing into our homes and our workspaces. And so it's encouraging people to use the wired infrastructure that we already have where possible, and only use wireless when it's necessary. That's the difference. Otherwise, we just go into this whole wireless thing and everything becomes wireless.
Right.
And nobody wants to use anything wired because wireless is more convenient.
Right.
Without understanding the potential health risks. So fiber optics doesn't replace everything that 5G is looking to do. You know what I mean? I think that what it is that the type of radiation or the type of the methods having to use to deliver type of speeds you can get over fiber optic in a wireless or cellular data form is what is causing the concerns from a health risk, because you would have this huge densification of radiation all over the place.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
it
That
literally
like,
is
so it's like a quantum leap in radiation, in wireless radiation, in order to get the high speeds that you can already get over fiber optic. Wireless speed.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
No problem.
Anybody who's on Facebook should also know that we have a page, BAST, and that we're always posting new articles and information that are fascinating, stories and videos and things on. You asked about pregnant women. We just posted one today from that group that you named, Camilla. And there's a lot of information out there to be had if you look for it. Yeah. So join us, please, there if you'd like.
Yeah. Pastor?
Any more questions? We take one more. But if there's no more questions, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank all those associated with BAST for enlightenments and teaching us some things that we take so for granted, but don't know all the details behind. And I want to thank you. Therese was the connection with me that we were able to make this possible. And again, if you interested in reading and submitting a section form letter, send it to Bethel BDA Church at Gmail, and with the subject line 5G form letter, and I will send that out to you. And the email address will be there that you can send it on to the RA. But thank you all so much for joining again.
I'd like to offer a closing.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, this is Janine Richardson.
Yes, go ahead.
So my and BAST stance is that we're calling on our government to exercise their precautionary principle as regards anything or any product or service with inconclusive studies. So I'll speak about the precautionary principle. The fundamental guidelines of it is better to be safe than sorry, and let's prove something is safe rather than assume it's harmless. Also, let's be cautious when something may be harmful, even if it's not proven yet. Our oneness with God is the secret of unlimited energy. It's not man's tapping into energy. We do not consume the energy from God, we reflect it. It is never destructive since its source is love. It is adaptable to every need of mankind. Concerning 5G and any energy offered by man, we have seen its destruction with its pollution, overconsumption, excessive materialism, and not least its adverse environmental and health effects. So we need to heed God's word as admonished in Thessalonians 5, that is to prove all things and hold fast that which is good. Thank you. May God bless us and cover us and keep us all.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Thank you. Wonderful way to end. And again, thank you all so much. And we pray that we will continue to educate ourselves. We all take advantage of the internet and the Wi-Fi and all of that, but we really need to educate ourselves. So Camilla, I will continue to be in touch with you and with Therese that we can find some way that with Bethel and AME Church that we can find some way to continue to educate our people.
My heartfelt thanks to you. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties in the late slot. And I truly appreciate your time tonight and the whole group taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Carmen, for assisting in the techie stuff.
Yes, thank you, Carmen.
Calm is the best. Calm is the best.
Cool and calm. Carmen.
All right, night, everybody.
Okay, good night, everyone. Be blessed.
Good night. God bless.
Again,
Joyce.
please stay in touch. Let us help in any way we can.
Night all. Night.
Night.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
Doesn't take that long to get people off of. Oh, that was easy. Yeah, cool.
Sister Gladys, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm
Good to
positive,
see
doing
you.
better.
Welcome back.
Yes, I'm doing better.
Good, good.